Interject that I also have been told that I have the perfect face for radio.
Be Nice Individuals Podcast.
Hey folks, this is Thaddeus on the Be Nice Individuals Podcast, which is hosted here at the Flagler Voice Podcast Studio. I have a very special guest in the studio. It's Gene Perez from Gene Perez Insurance. Gene, how you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you, Thaddeus. I appreciate being here, and I appreciate the opportunity for this selfish self-promotion. It is my purpose today to introduce myself and discuss a little bit about what I do and why I do it differently from most other people who are in the health insurance, group insurance, Medicare marketplace.
Yeah. One thing I just want to point out to the audience, Gene has the perfect voice for podcasting. He said he's never done it before, so kudos to you, Gene. So tell us more about what you want to talk about specifically with introducing yourself.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to interject that I also have been told that I have the perfect face for radio. But a little bit of background on me. And then I'm going to discuss briefly what it is that I'm going to go into in other segments. Because briefly, I was born in New York City and raised there, went to college in New Jersey at Fairleigh Dickinson University, got drafted, became a military policeman, became a sergeant in the military police. After that, got out, went into banking. Had moved to California in the meantime because I was stationed at the Presidio of San Francisco, a lovely place 2 hours a day when it was sunny. And my wife and I got married in 1970. She was still in college. She moved out to join me in San Francisco. And then we lived in San Francisco for a while. After that, we moved to places where she could get a teaching job and I could get a banking job. So I spent the next 14 years in banking and 15 years after that in private consulting, where I did cash flow and profitability consulting to small businesses. And then an opportunity arose and I went back into banking, was actually the CEO of a little credit union for a couple of years and went to work then after that for Washington Mutual. I loved Washington Mutual as an employer. It gave a great employee experience and delivered a wonderful customer experience, but it failed and Chase bought it and chased me out. That's how I got into insurance.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. I can do that over and over again to people's annoyance. And in going into insurance, I started out in Aflac in California, and then discovered that I was not able to serve everybody who worked at the company because it was all groups. And some of the folks were 65 or over, and they were ineligible for the Aflac products. So I got myself trained in Medicare and trained with a company that was a Medicare-only agency. So I did Aflac and I did Medicare in California. Yeah. And then in 2013, my wife and I came out to Florida. We had been here several times because her stepfather lives in Palm Coast, Florida, and has lived here for some years, moved here around 2001 or 2. And we came out to visit. We've been all over Florida. We liked it. My wife had just retired from 42 years of teaching in California. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, why don't we move here? I said, well, the cost of living is good. And if I sell insurance in California, I can sell insurance in Florida.
Sure.
And that was true. We took a year to get our act together and got here in 2015. Now, one thing that I had grossly underestimated was how difficult it would be and how long it would take and how much it would cost, usually the time and money go together, to establish an insurance practice here where I didn't know anybody. Well, now I know a lot of anybody's. I know a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's I've made it my business over the past 10 years to get to know people in Palm Coast. We lived in Palm Coast, leased at first, and then I tried the Palm Coast Chamber of Commerce. Found it to be attractive but cliquish. So I tried the Ormond Beach Chamber of Commerce, and those folks there greeted me like a long lost relative. I loved it. It was a very comfortable feeling. I went through their Leadership Academy, and the following year I was one of the team that put on the Leadership Academy. But most of my business was coming from Flagler County.
Sure.
So when we bought in Palm Coast in Grand Haven, and I connected with the chamber. Now, in the 2 years that I was very active in Ormond, I spent a lot of time making Facebook friends in Flagler County.
Yeah.
So now I became part of the cliques, because when people would meet me, oh, you're Gene Perez, we're connected on Facebook.
Yeah.
So it was a warm intro instead of being a cold intro.
Yeah.
And it was very comfortable. At any rate, I have continued to be active in the community. I volunteered for the Sheriff's Department for a couple of years as a COP. I won't go into what that is now, but it's a fun thing to do and interesting. But the whole time I have been doing health insurance. Now, I am contracted with a company called Sunsure Insurance Solutions, Inc., headquartered in Orange City. Sunsure is one of the bigger, in the large end of the mid-sized insurance agencies in Florida. It has about 100 agents. And we specialize in health insurance and Medicare plans. And because I have been on Medicare for a number of years myself, I tend to specialize in Medicare. But I also do groups. And because of my banking and consulting background, it's easy for me to understand the issues that business owners deal with, and I can, if you will, commiserate sometimes because of all of the complexities and the minefield that the government has set forth for business owners in the health insurance world. Now, I'll be going into that in more detail in subsequent podcasts. But initially, let me just say that I work with people on the individual health insurance world, in that world, both through the health insurance marketplace and through what they call the off exchange, which is not through the health insurance marketplace. I am an agent captive to a couple of different companies that I won't mention, because otherwise they would have the ability to veto anything or make sure that everything I say is compliant. I don't do anything intentionally non-compliant, but I don't want to give anybody the right to shut me down because they think I might possibly remotely be non-compliant.
Sure.
So I won't mention the companies on this podcast, but later on I guess I will be unable to avoid it completely. At any rate, I work with mostly Medicare clients. I'm 78. I've been on Medicare for a number of years, and I've had every kind of Medicare plan that there is in this area.
Sure.
So I've earned all of the gray hair you see on my head. I'm not prematurely gray. I am, if anything, I'm delaying my graying, but not intentionally. It just happens. So as an agent, I try to give my particular clients more than they ask for. In other words, overpromise, underpromise, overdeliver.
Yeah.
That's my philosophy in life. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, I had a call from a client who was, he's been having atrial fibrillation, which is a health-threatening issue.
Yeah.
He had a test run. The test results went to a company in Massachusetts, and his doctor here in Flagler, well, he's in Volusia County, was not getting the results. So he called the health insurance company, and they didn't have the results. So I got on the phone with him, a 3-way call. We got on with the carrier, and I said, if I have to, because this is a life-threatening situation, I will escalate this all the way to the director of medicine in the company, because he's invited us to do that.
Sure.
He wants to make sure that the members are well taken care of.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
So I didn't have to do that, but as soon as I said that, things happened. And we got transferred to the cardiology department, and then as soon as we got to the cardiology department, the person we spoke to said, I will have my tech reach out right now, go on the website, get those lab results, and get them to your doctor today. And It happened yesterday. So that's the kind of hand-holding, if it usually isn't necessary to do anything that dramatic.
Sure.
But if it is, I do it.
Yeah.
Now, with regard to groups, we can broker. So the companies with which I am exclusive for individual coverage, I'm not exclusive for in the group world. So all the carriers are available to us. The Florida Blue, Aetna, Cigna, Humana, United Healthcare, all of them are available. And with regard to Medicare, I do the exact same kind of hand-holding with my Medicare clients, many of whom are just learning about Medicare. Nobody who's new to Medicare understands Medicare, even if they've had a spouse or a parent who's been on Medicare for years.
Sure.
Their exposure is limited.
Yeah.
And I have prepared a presentation that I can email to folks. I call it Medicare in English. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can see it.
And it's a presentation that is a high level, 10,000 foot level, but it goes into enough detail to make people feel comfortable that what we're talking about is all inclusive of the things that they might have to consider.
Right.
I don't make decisions for anybody, but I educate them, invite them to do any additional research, whether through me or through other sources, and then make their own decision, because every person's needs are individual. You can't have a one-size-fits-all.
Sure.
So I really think that that's pretty much all I'm going to say in this podcast. I don't know how much time we have left. I can just go back and say that it's been a pleasure being here. I hope to be able to see this on my, put this on my website, GenePerezInsurance.com. I will put it on my Facebook page and a number of other places online. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, they can do it either through telephone, 949-981-0392. My cell phone still thinks it's in California, even though we've been here for 10 years. Or they can reach out to me by email at gene.perez@sunsure.com. That's all for today.
That's awesome. I'm really interested to know, as we get into the other podcasts, really what brought you into it and your passion behind it. And you've been on Medicare for a while, and your experience and how you can speak to that versus people who've never been on it. You were even saying that maybe a person has a family member who's been on it that still doesn't qualify that person who's going into Medicare as really knowing exactly what it'd be like, because experience is the best teacher in your knowledge base. So
that's a great question and an intro to a comment. I have recently started training people at Florida Healthcare, some nurses. There was one nurse in particular. Her mother and her aunt are clients of mine, and she deals with Medicare patients every day.
Yeah.
But she was not that comfortable with it. So
Sure.
We sat down for an hour, went through Medicare 101. She had questions, I had answers, and we have a very solid communication line, and she's got a more robust knowledge base with which to deal with her patients.
That's great. I love that. So folks out there, make sure you guys reach out to Gene Perez He gave his phone number, which will be in the description below, and his email as well. Gene Perez Insurance. Get those Medicare questions answered. Any other health insurance questions that you guys have, you can direct them to Gene. But also, he's going to be throwing out some more podcasts in the future, some educational pieces. Stay tuned for those. So, this has been Thaddeus and Gene Perez here at the Flagler Voice Podcast Studio on the Be Nice Individuals podcast. And remember, folks, this is a space that other people can come out. They can rent the time here. Businesses, individuals that have ideas, or businesses that want to shout out their information. This is the perfect space for that. Political candidates that want to reach out to their constituents. Also, great place for that. We have call-in features here. With that call-in feature, right? A political candidate could connect to their audience directly by going live and having call-ins if they wanted to, if they were feeling froggy, to answer questions on the air. It'd be awesome. So anyway, this has been Thaddeus again on the Be Nice Individuals podcast. We'll see you next time.